What's up guys, Tamrakshan here. Samsung's 2021 A series phones are pretty much spread out in terms of pricing, and in that the most expensive one as of now is the Galaxy A72. Now the A71 is a phone that I personally liked a lot even though it had flaws, and based on the experience from it, I was very much excited about the A72. But with this phone, the main gripe I have is its price. Because for the price tag it's selling, this phone is lacking stuff when compared to its competition. And here as you can see, the A72 does have two variants and its pricing starts at 35,000 Indian rupees. And I feel this phone would have been a great successor to the A71 if the pricing was somewhere in the 28,000 to 30,000 range. Because here with the core user stuff, there are things that are done great, then there are stuff which are good, and also there is the not so good things too. And here for me, the best thing or the great thing about this phone is without doubt its display. This is a 6.7-inch Infinity O Full HD Plus Super AMOLED panel which has 90Hz refresh rate. Samsung's displays are of pretty good quality, and here there is no exception with the A72. Bezels are fairly slim and the hole punch cutout is well done, but here this silver ring was something that could have been skipped. But that said, the viewing angles, brightness level and colors are all properly done. There is no tint effect or any uneven areas, and overall I loved media consumption with this display. It's a joyful experience and the 90Hz refresh rate is like a cherry on top. I feel higher refresh rate panels should be considered a standard factor from now onwards, and here Samsung has started using these higher refresh rate panels in most of their phones. Well, here this is an area where the A72 shines compared to the A71. I did notice the extra smoothness because of the higher refresh rate panel, and that's like enhancing the daily use experience, which is always a welcome thing. But then one thing that seems a bit backward is that the lower bezel in the A72 is slightly thicker than the one in the A71. Still, overall this displays an upgrade over the A71, and hence this is the great thing about the A72. For the segment it falls into, I think Samsung has done the right choice when it comes to display. And that's it for the best thing about this phone. Because here the rest of the stuff, like I said earlier, is either good to okay and not so good. And in that, the good to okay stuff are the battery, performance and camera experience. Battery capacity is 5000 mAh, which is huge, and here the battery backup I was getting was good. The screen on time I was getting with somewhat heavy usage was in the 6-hour range. So that's like a sure 1-day battery backup with heavy usage and a 1.5-day battery backup with average usage. And here to make things good in the charging side, well, the phone does support fast charging and the phone does come equipped with a 25-watt charger in box. And with that charger and the included USB-C cable, well, you can charge to 100% from 10% under an hour. But then if you are a person who prefers wireless charging, well, this phone doesn't support that, so it's something to keep note of. But then with the rest of the battery stuff, I have no complaints, and hence I did rate the battery factor as good. But when you move to the performance side, well, it's a mixed experience. And for sure, I would say Samsung has opted for the wrong processor, especially considering the price tag of this phone. The processor used in the A72 is the Snapdragon 720G, which is a 8nm octa-core processor, and the GPU is Adreno 618, and your day-to-day tasks work perfectly fine and the user experience is good. But here while comparing with the A71, which has a Snapdragon 730 processor, I didn't notice any speed improvements. And that's a big letdown because here the pricing is in the likes of the OnePlus 8T and the iPhone XR. And when you compare with those phones, well, the A72 is blown away. And also right now most of the Android phones does come equipped with 5G, so that's also an area in which the A72 is lacking. 5G is not like a widespread thing, and in India it's not yet available, but when you spend this much money you might be looking to keep using this phone for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, and that's when the 5G thing will come into play. So that's also like a key thing to note, and here the present Android version is Android 11 and it's based on One UI 3.1, and overall with this setup, well, all the apps in the Play Store is supported and they do work well. Game loading times are on the slower side, and also in the graphic intense scenario there is a slight bit of frame drop happening, but it's not like something that will spoil the experience. And also about the RAM, well, in both the variants available in India, it's 8GB and the RAM is not something to worry about. If it's moderately heavy apps, approximately 6 apps does stay open in memory. And talking about memory, well, the storage options can be either 128GB or 256GB, and it can be expanded, but then the SIM slot available is the hybrid tray. So it's like you can either use 2 SIMs or use a single SIM and go for the SD card expansion. So overall with the performance, it's a place where the higher price does create a problem, and that's why I did mention that if the pricing was in the 28,000 to 30,000 range, this would have been totally fine. But that said, a plus point to highlight with the Samsung Galaxy phones right now is that the software side is well supported. Samsung has promised 3 major software updates for this phone, and also the security updates will be rolling out for 4 years. So that's a great thing, but overall the performance and user experience from this phone is surely not the right thing for the segment. And another area where things are like this is with the camera system. Now when you compare this camera package with the A71, this is a pretty solid upgrade, but here similar to the performance side, the issue is when you compare the A72 with its other competitors like the Pixel 4a, iPhone SE2 and the iPhone XR. Because even now in this segment, I would easily pick the Pixel 4a as the best phone for taking photos and the iPhone SE2 or the iPhone XR as the best option for videos. And here the A72 is a phone that's good with photos and videos in specific scenarios. So it's a camera package which is handy, but it's not something that we can always rely on to perform well. There are 4 cameras on the back, and in that the main sensor is a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture 26mm wide camera which has optical image stabilization. Then there is a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera with f2.2 aperture and 123 degree field of view. Then the third camera is a 8 megapixel telephoto camera which has an aperture of f2.4 and it has 3x optical zoom capability and 30x digital zoom. And the last camera is a 5 megapixel macro camera with aperture f2.4. And here the photos that are captured in good lighting environment is good to great from all these sensors. And in that especially the main camera does capture pretty solid shots which has proper dynamic range and sharpness. Colors look a bit saturated, but that's the common Samsung thing and I do like it. And here the ultra wide angle camera and the telephoto camera in 3x zoom setting doesn't show much of tone change when compared with the photos from the main camera. And also the macro camera, if used in good lighting, well the shots are neat, but then there is an issue with focusing. And this focusing issue is present with the main camera if the lighting is dull. And actually in such a scenario, the only usable camera is the main sensor, and here if you can hold very steady, well then the night mode shots looks fine. And while moving to the video recording, well things are good again when the light available is sufficient. 4K video recording is supported up to 30 frames per second, but I don't prefer that setting. And the one I opted the most is 1080p setting at 60 fps. And in such a setting, well the videos are okay in terms of stability with good color reproduction and also focusing was at moderate speed. And now while checking the front camera, well it's a 32 megapixel 26mm camera which has an aperture of f2.2. Here the selfies are sharp enough with a bit of processing happening, and the processing thing is more evident in dim lighting because in such a scenario the skin tone looks softer. And here about the videos captured, well they are stable and actually if you want it can be used to capture a vlog format video because here the stability is not complainable and also there is no focusing issue and even the overall scene looks neat. Now with the front camera, the max video resolution supported is 4K at 30 fps, but then here also I did opt to record in 1080p, but then the max frame rate supported is 30 fps. So that's the whole camera situation, and here this is surely a good package when you compare it with most of the Android phones in the segment, with an exception happening with the Google Pixel 4a. Because here if you want to compare this camera package with the OnePlus 8T, I'll pick the camera system used in the Galaxy A72 over the 8T. Now there are a couple more good stuff with this phone and they are the audio and the unlocking method. In terms of the audio output, well the phone does have dual speakers and yet this speaker combo does output good sound with clarity. So it's a good pair of speakers to back the display, and that's another reason why this phone is a great media consumption device. And also if you want to get a more immersive experience, you can plug in a headphone which has a 3.5mm jack. And also this earpiece is a good one for calls too because it does get fairly loud. And about the unlocking method, well it's still an optical in-display fingerprint scanner, but here this scanner is actually a much more improved one than what we had with the Galaxy A71. Accuracy is better and also speed has improved. So that's all about the good to okay stuff from this phone, and now to the bad stuff or things that I felt was not up to the mark. Again, it's while we sort things based on pricing, and that thing is the design and the build quality. Now the design is much more nicer compared to the A71 because this one looks much more modern since it's opting for the body integrated camera section. But here what I didn't like with this design is the dimension and also the materials used. The dimension of the phone are on the huge side, which is an expected thing from a phone with 6.7-inch display, but in that the main problem is with the weight. The phone weighs 203 grams, which is on the heavier side, and you will notice it while using the phone for an extended period of time. And about the materials, well it's glass in the front, but the sides and back is plastic. Now plastic is not the issue, but then it's the quality of it which was the issue. The side is now a bit more flatter, which gives more area to hold, but then it's this shiny plastic which gets scratched pretty easily, and also the back plastic does flex a lot in the center. This is a 35,000 rupees phone and I never expected such kind of a quality from a phone selling for such a price. The Galaxy A71 from last year didn't have such an issue, so that's a big letdown because here with the A72, it's like going backwards. Now other than these stuff, the rest of the design and build is good. Especially the buttons, they provide great feedback, and also this time the phone is IP rated. This is an IP67 rated phone, which means the phone is water resistant up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. And also there isn't any gap where the portions join and there wasn't any flexing issue from the sides. And lastly, the Bluetooth version of the phone is 5 and the Wi-Fi version is dual band Wi-Fi, and here you also get NFC and all the needed sensors. So I guess that's everything about the Galaxy A72. And this phone is actually a good update to the last year's A71, but then couple of things that need some care was with the build quality and also the pricing. And I do feel if Samsung reduces the price, well then this phone will become a good choice. And actually Samsung does already make such a phone, which is the A52. The A52 has a lot of similarities to the A72, and maybe that's the reason Samsung priced this phone in such a manner. And right now, I'll suggest to wait or skip the A72 till the price drops. And from Samsung's previous records, that wait won't be too long. That's all for this video guys. Hope you liked it. If so, a like is much appreciated and a sub to the channel will be awesome. See you again in the next one. Till then, bye.